welcome back to my channel, or welcome if it's your first time here. I'm Lindsay, and today I'm doing a mid-year book recommendation video because it is June and that is the middle of the year. This first half of the year, I read a lot of books that were kind of random, kind of ones I got at used book sales. Some of them were pretty good, some of them not so much, so I don't have as many books to recommend as I was hoping. I have 6. I kind of have more than 6 actually, because one, I'm recommending a series, but yeah, I mean, I guess that's not bad. I know it's on my TBR, and I think the second half of the year I'm gonna have better books. I'm gonna have read better books by the end of this year, so that's just where I'm at right now. Let me just get into the video. So I'm starting with recommending the series. It's Once Upon a Broken Heart. I have a video reviewing the whole series that I believe is completely spoiler free, so I'll link that below. But I just love this story. It is so cute and magical, yet dark and mysterious, and it has a fairy tale type world that takes place in the same world as Stephanie Garber's previous story, Caraval. I hadn't read that before reading this series, so you don't necessarily have to, but I would recommend it. It is a little bit more bows and pink and cute little dragons than Caraval, but I'll talk more about Caraval later. My favorite way to describe the series is that it's a fairy tale with a twist, like darker, different kind of magic, but still has those kind of classic Disney fairy tale vibes. So it's about a girl named Evangeline Fox who makes a deal with a fate named Jax to stop a wedding between who she thought was her boyfriend and her stepsister. But of course, making a deal with a fate with this kind of magic that she has only heard about, she doesn't really know about, she's never seen before, it isn't so cut and dry, so everything doesn't go as she hoped. She ends up going to this mysterious north that she heard about from her late parents, mostly her mother, since her mom was from there, and it's not exactly as she expected. She finds more mystery when she gets there. She also finds Jax there, and with that, more mysteries unravel, betrayals happen, literal chaos ensues, there's twists, there's so many twists that it doesn't matter how much you pick up on foreshadowing, the twist will still have you screaming. The Ballad of Never After will break you, I swear. I think the characters are ones you will fall in love with, others you won't, but what is a story without some unlikable characters? That's kind of how there has to be. There has to be. And I understand the third book didn't live up to people's standards. I do agree, I don't think it's the strongest book in the series plot-wise. I think the second book was probably my favorite. However, I am hopeful that any unanswered questions will be revealed in other books, because it was heavily hinted at that there will be at least spin-off books with characters from this series. So, I mean, some of the unanswered questions I do think were in subtext, but other than that, I do understand why people were disappointed. I wouldn't let that discourage anyone from reading the series, because I still loved it. I still loved it. Trust me, I still think it's worth it. The next book I did a vlog about recently. It's a very popular book, The Invisible Life of Addy Laroo. You've probably heard of it. Even if you haven't, I recommend it so much. It lives up to that hype, I think. But it's a story of a 23-year-old woman from like 1700s France who makes a deal with a dark god that allows her to live for as long as she wants until she's tired of living, but no one who encounters her will remember her. So she lives for thousands of years completely on her own, kind of figuring out how to make life more livable and enjoyable for her despite the fact that it's on her own, and playing it to be as she wants so she can live for as long as she wants, until one day everything's kind of thrown for a loop when someone remembers her. It jumps back and forth from like 1800s to modern time to even like the 50s, to just different points in her life to her modern day. So that's something to prepare yourself for. It's a hard read emotionally, but it's so worth it. I highly, 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 highly recommend this book. Okay, so this book was my most anticipated read of this year. The Prisoner's Throne, the end of the spin-off duology from the Cruel Prince series, the Book of the Air series by Holly Black. Holly Black is just, she knows how to write tension, and she understands fae lore, and knows how to write a fantasy world that makes you feel like you are living in a different world, like you are experiencing a different world. Yes, she does do world building as the story goes on. She doesn't, always explain what a fantasy creature is. So if you don't know fae lore as much, if you don't know what all these different fantasy creatures are. She might name one and then you have to look it up if you don't know what it is. But also, I don't think a story has to be perfect for me to love it. That's just how I am. I'm fine with imperfections in stories because show me a perfect story. But also, I don't mind world building to not be telling me every little thing. I'm fine when some things are open for interpretation or just even for you to look up what a fantasy creature is. I already love fantasy, so I knew what a lot of things were and the fae and that kind of stuff, but I completely understand why it can be frustrating for people and why people didn't like that as much. But that's kind of besides the point from this story. So this is a sequel, as I already mentioned, so I'm not going to say too much because spoilers for both books, but I have a not spoiler free, it's a spoiler filled video of me talking about this book and kind of more of the series in general. I'll link that below if you want to see that, but just pretty much this starts off where we left off in the Stolen Heir. But the Stolen Heir was Ren's point of view, and this book is Oak's point of view. And I kind of appreciated getting both of their point of views because we got to learn more about how Oak's childhood affected him and how the way people perceived Oak wasn't necessarily true. And I think for me that was really cool. For someone, I'm sure there are other people out there that really love the Folk of the Air and saw Oak's childhood and was kind of interested by that because he did play a big part, even though he was more of a side character in the Folk of the Air. A lot of things revolved around him. So I really enjoyed that, from then getting Jude's point of view to Ren's point of view, then we finally have Oak's point of view. It also kind of felt like a rebuttal from Ren's point of view because Ren is guessing a lot of the times. A lot of Ren's inner thoughts are about Oak and how he feels and that kind of stuff. But then we get Oak's point of view. He's like, no, this is how I feel. So I don't know, I just kind of really liked that. Oh, and Jude and Carden come back in this book, so, you know, I was obsessed because I love them because they're everything to me. This next book I actually have right next to me, Good Omens. I read this at the end of last year, so I kind of was like, maybe I shouldn't put this in this video, but I felt like I didn't really get to talk about it, so that's why it's here. This book is a fantasy book with a religious-inspired good versus evil story. I mean, it's heavily religious inspired. It's pretty much all about religion, but it is all these intertwining stories that all lead up to one big night, like an apocalyptic night. I know there's a show that's really popular based off the book. I haven't seen all of it. I've only seen a couple episodes, and what I did see, there were some differences, but it was mainly just kind of adding to the plot. So it wasn't, you know, didn't make me mad or anything, but know a lot of people love Aziraphale and Crowley, and if you love them, I highly recommend the book. You'll love them in the book too. I mean, anything between them is more implied in the book than it is in the show, but still, I enjoyed the book, and I do recommend the book. I mean, it's Neil Gaiman and Terry Pratchett, and it has their kind of like sense of humor, their dry, sarcastic sense of humor, and I laughed at multiple points throughout the book, so really, it's a fun read with an overarching message that ties everything together at the end, and just, it was very satisfying, and I liked it a lot. So this next recommendation is Caraval. I mentioned it briefly earlier. I haven't finished this series as of filming this, so I can only recommend the first book because I did like the first book. And it is from the point of view and kind of all about Scarlet Dragna, who I knew very little about, because she is in Once Upon a Broken Heart, but a very, 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 very small part. So it was interesting to learn more about her. So Scarlet had been writing someone called the Caraval Master Legend, let me check. Caraval Master Legend since she was 10, and asking him to bring his players to Trisda, where she's from. And he didn't write back until she was 17 and getting ready to get married. And he couldn't come to Trisda, so he invited her and her fiance and Donatella to come to Caraval to see the players to play this game where everyone is competing for a wish. Did I say Donatella's her sister Donatella? It is obvious early on that there's going to be some focus on like sisterly love and the relationship between Scarlet and Donatella because they are very different in the way that Scarlet's a rule follower and Donatella is not, and she's kind of more adventurous, and Scarlet is like, I'm scared all the time. And they both kind of have this childhood trauma that I'm not going to go into because of spoilers, but it is kind of revealed what happened to them early on, and they're just both dealing with that differently, so that plays into this story. We also learn early on that Scarlett's engagement is arranged and she's never met the Count. That's who she's engaged to, and she doesn't really care. She just wants to leave Trista. However, she was scared to go to Caraval for reasons, but her sister Donatella knew how badly she wanted to go because she was always writing these letters, and they had heard stories about Caraval and Master Legend from their grandmother since they were small children. So she, Donatella, works together with a man named Julian to kind of force Scarlett to go there against her will. But Scarlett goes, and she gets there and very quickly realizes that things were not as she always imagined they would be, or even the way her grandmother told her they would be. So this is another, Stephanie Garber seems to really like mysteries with her novels, and I really appreciated that. So yeah, the story really unravels mysteries, reveals secrets, that kind of stuff. It's definitely a different kind of magic than Once Upon a Broken Heart, even though it's the same world. There's something, it's just like, that one was more fairy tale to me. This one is more like, that one's twisted fairy tale, and this was more like twisted carnival. Like, I don't even know how to really explain it other than that. But yeah, I another one, recommend this. I do like Stephanie Garber's writing so far from what I've read, so I can't wait to keep reading more, and I will make a video just for this series when I finish it. Well, I have it scheduled for kind of well after I finish it because the way I have my video schedules right now, but that's not important. Okay, and my final recommendation is Persuasion by Jane Austen. I've said this before, I'll say it again. I think this may be my new favorite Jane Austen book so far. I just think it really captures her witty, satirical commentary on society at the time while still having like the classic Jane Austen romance. It features a heroine that's older than other Jane Austen heroines. She's 27, I think, and she also is different than other ones because she doesn't have strong family ties. She doesn't have like a big loving family like, you know, Elizabeth and Persuasion. Pride and Prejudice. Why couldn't I think of that? But her family is so comical, and their vanity and just arrogance, it's so funny. It's also a reconnection love story, which was really sweet and I really loved, because the thing about Jane Austen is she's gonna give you that commentary that is like, none of this is perfect, but then she's still gonna give you a sweet romantic story. So highly, highly recommend. And I could say more things about the characters, because the thing about me with classics is they're all gonna have characters that aren't perfect, that aren't unproblematic to today's standards, because obviously they're from forever ago, so they're all gonna be problematic in a way, but I don't think I would ever not recommend a book because of that. Like, I know I've definitely in the past complained about books that weren't classics though, that were from like the 2000s, but this is still kind of relevant, that had like an obsession with defining gender and gender roles, or just with like say prejudice stuff. The thing is, the biggest problem with those books is they had no other redeeming qualities, because classics are all gonna have problematic stuff, but they're well written. And so the ones that aren't well written and then they have that, it's easier to complain about. But I also would never recommend you don't read a book just because it's problematic. Like with this book specifically, I'm kind of going on a tangent, but it's relevant to this book because I didn't agree with everything the protagonist was saying and doing and all that kind of stuff, but it doesn't really matter. Like, I don't have to relate to everything or agree with everything or think it's unproblematic to like a book. That's kind of what the conclusion of this is, because this book was so well written and I still loved it, and I just think that's something that, you know, I see this discourse a lot, and just something that needs to be said, that you need to avoid a book just because it's problematic. If you're like, this is fine to be doing in real life, like defining the gender roles, that's a different thing, but fiction's fiction. Like, I have this LeVar Burton sticker that says read banned books, because something I'm just not gonna get behind is like the banning of classics because you don't agree with what they're saying. You know what I mean? Just in general, I'm kind of against banning books, you know? I don't know why I went on that tangent, but I did. I mean, it's the end of the video, so is anyone even here. Hello. But tangent aside, those are my recommendations. If you like this, please like and subscribe. If you like fantasy, romantasy, clearly I read a lot of those kind of books, so this is the place to be. I also read other books as well, and I'm getting back into contemporary romance, and I just like to try different genres. So if you like other genres, you'll hear about those too. Just if you liked books, if you enjoyed this video, if you like books, or if you enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe, and I will see you in a week. Bye!